going to explain these concepts that are very challenging, complicated crypto and trading concepts to consumers?
Okay, so we basically ignore the blockchain portion of it because our consumers are video gamers. The digital vending machine we have, it's over my shoulder here, that vends non-fungible tokens, video game items, and they leave the digital vending machine with it on their cell phone, and then they can trade it on the marketplace. So to who we're communicating with, they're video game players that just want the assets, and they don't care about the other underlying technology. They just want it transferred to them fast and easy, and for them to have a knowledge that it's secure. And we've pretty much deployed that and tried it out and tested it in the field, and that's, they just want the assets. They don't care about the other underlying technology.
Excellent, because they're already playing the games and they're already using the assets in the games, and you're just kind of positioning it as a quick way to swap the assets, but you're really not discussing this whole value swap, if you like.
Well, we're not just, they understand, usually the game players understand the values of it. I mean, realize that video games have had virtual economies, virtual items, and virtual goods and virtual currency for almost 30 years. I mean, people have flown across the country to buy a sword in Ultima Online, several decades ago. They know these assets have real world value and they trade them. So this is the first time that they can trade them outside of the video game and have a secure way to liquidate the assets without getting ripped off. And that's a huge problem that we went to solve, because there's kids out there that have, and I'm a kid, by the way, that have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of things in Magic the Gathering or World of Warcraft. And if they try to sell them over eBay and PayPal, or where they're transferring the money over PayPal, there's well over a 70% fraud problem. And putting that with a blockchain backbone to where you can do it and exchange it on crypto, removes that problem.
It's really interesting. The markets existed. You're just using NFTs almost as supply chain management tracking of the process. And you're using crypto as, sort of more liquid, frictionless market for this, which is great. Great application. Kevin, how are you going to explain this to your audience?
How am I going to explain what exactly?
Well, staking of NFTs and, in essence, complicated. I think DeFi concepts are complicated for anyone participating in in any market, non-crypto, but then especially in the creative market. How are you going to explain this to collectors and to the creators?
Well, so the staking part of it, I was expecting the same thing that Andrew said. Most people don't care about the way that things work. Like, they just care that they work. So I was going on the basis of this and figured after someone's invested in something and they're making money off of it, that's generally that's the point that people start to want to learn about what it is. Like, most people, like, if you ask them about it, the ICOs and things that they invested in, like, they couldn't even tell you anything about the projects. You're like, okay, so what do they do? And they're like, I don't know, I'm just trying to make money off of it. And so going on that basis, and what I saw, during the ICO period in 2017, and then during this whole NFT craze this past couple of years, I figured I'd start with a system that all you had to do was go follow the couple instructions that existed, and you could stake it. And once that happened, we have a whole bunch of documentation, and I definitely support doing research into like whatever you're doing and how it works. I don't know if we've updated our mechanism diagrams recently, but we have diagrams whatever arrow diagrams, just kind of showing how the mechanism works, what it does. And there's a lot of informational videos that we've put out at this point to kind of try and push people in the right direction and kind of want that education. But my thought when we were building this project was more that why don't we teach, like force people to learn to invest rather than trying to get them to learn how to invest? So that was the locking mechanism, that 90-day period that we lock your tokens. Like literally, you don't have the option of taking it out. It's not like an ICO where you put stuff in as soon as they list on market, you can go swap your tokens out. We kind of made it so that you have a 90-day period that you're forced to. And like, this is how investments work. Like I do a venture capital investment. And when I invest in a company, it's like 5 to 7 years. We're giving you a 90-day period. It's a very baby version of this. But also at the point of you reach that lockup period, you start, your rewards increase. You have a 200% base live generation rate. And as soon as you hit that, your lockup period, your tokens are unlocked. But for every second that you leave the tokens in the contract, your rate of generation increases forever. So you're very incentivized to keep your tokens there so that you can generate more all the time.
It's fascinating. I love the idea of it. I think it's very powerful and very needed in this market. So going back to, I would say Joe and I think, was it Dan who presented in terms of the Bitcoin mining, how important is the source of energy, electricity versus some alternative source of energy that you feel is, is necessary to get this done? And how important is it in the actual calculation of the return on asset?
Great question. So I think it's extremely important, and maybe just coming from my own personal standpoint, I wouldn't want to exude a bunch of carbon into the atmosphere in order to create Bitcoin. Quite on the contrary, what I think is the real value of this project in the long term is that we would be building renewable energy assets within the US. I live here in LA, and my electricity costs are somewhere between 30 cents per kilowatt to 40 cents per kilowatt if I use up my full electricity allocation. And so if someone is able to build a solar farm not too far from here, or wind farm not too far from here, use most of it to mine Bitcoin, but then when the energy grid gets pulled on, you can just funnel that and make it cheaper for everyone else. That's extremely valuable. Now, our project is going to be over 98% renewable energy, hydro specifically, and we'd be looking to offset the last 2% with carbon credit purchases as well. And when you're talking about the greater ecosystems as a whole, it's a fantastic point that there is going to be some regulation backlash on a lot of these miners that use natural gas or oil or whatever it may be. And so you'll see a lot of energy projects popping up that will be renewable energy ones, and the ones that won't be. And the ones that won't be will also have backlash, as I saw someone here talking about renewable energy tokens. People are going to want to know how their Bitcoin was mined. They're going to want to know if their Bitcoin is clean energy mined or is it coming from a dirty power source. And that's a great question, and that's probably at the forefront of our investment thesis, is that we're going to be consistently renewable or almost 100% renewable as much as we can in order to produce clean Bitcoin.
Is renewable necessarily cheaper?
It does depend on the type of renewable energy source and the location. Renewable can be cheaper, and in many circumstances it is cheaper, especially if government subsidies are taken out of the equation. If you're looking at a solar project, for example, your cost of power will be extremely cheap, but your capital outlay on the front end will be very high. And so the circumstance that Bitcoin mining has actually allowed, and in my opinion, Bitcoin is really going to save the energy infrastructure in the US, is that it's going to force a lot of capital investments into renewable energy sources, which are cheaper down the line, call it 3 cents, 4 cent power, rather than coal burning or oil burning or natural gas or whatever it may be, which are upwards of 3 cents sometimes. It really depends on the location, the cost of the commodity that you're coming in at. But I'd say as a general rule of thumb, yes, if you're getting it from a good, clean power source that is in an area flush with power like we are, you're going to be getting it cheaper than anywhere else.
That's interesting. And so the lowest price at the moment is at about 3 cents, right?
So I have seen some companies that have gone all the way to 1.5 cent power, but they have essentially government stipends to do so. In general, if you're looking at hydropower or solar power, you're looking at 2.5 cent power. We have actually 2.5 cent power with 0.5 cent operating expense costs. So our all-in including power and OpEx, is 3 cents.
Yeah, that's quite a remarkable accomplishment. Matthew, on the Green Tech platform, what kind of projects are you looking for at the moment?
Yeah, so actually, Dan, there's a lot to talk about there. I'd like to exchange information to find out more how we
Yeah,
work together.
please.
Actually, Brian Figueroa is actually, I don't know if he can hear, but he's more of on the energy side of this project, and he's working in direct communication with a lot of our energy projects that are out there, and could be very informative to you because we're working with a lot of different a lot of Bitcoin miners that are looking to utilize our renewable energy projects that we have relationships with, and to continue to reduce that cost and the carbon footprint that you're talking about. So I can see a lot of synergies there in working with your guys' vision, what you're trying to do here. But Mariana, I'm sorry, what was your question? I apologize. I got excited about what Dan was talking about.
Oh, no worries. We just want to find out what types of projects are you looking for your platform?
For sure, yeah. So initially, we would like to be. We're working with projects that are producing again power purchase agreements already. We're able to create because eventually we know we're moving in the world. We're in the United States, the business. So as much as I hate to say it, believe me, but I think we're moving into a world where every coin's probably going to be a security. Not too long from now, at least that's the way things are looking. So, we're going to tie and we look at power being produced from these alternative energy projects. It's revenue, right? So whenever you're tying a coin to revenue, it can be considered a security, no matter how we try to dance around it and, try to create a utility use around it. There's no fighting, when you're going uphill with, the way they're trying to move, the policies, we just want to be ahead of it, right? So, and at the end of the day, it honestly really doesn't matter to us if it is a utility or security. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is reduce the carbon footprint by adding a cryptocurrency and allow not just institutions and accredited and venture capitalists and all these other high net worth individuals, but to allow the consumer to share in this space. Where you can make some seriously good returns. And, and that's what Green Tech is looking to do, bring in technologies to answer your question that are already producing, that have a power purchase agreement tied to their project where we'll be able to hook it up to our exchange.